Hey guys, Adam Hess here with Boats.net. Today we're going to be working on our Yamaha F50TLR. We're going to be doing a simple 100-hour service, which is going to include changing the engine oil, oil filter, gear case lube, and the fuel filter. So let's grab some tools and get started. Okay, today's job is going to be a skill level 1. It doesn't require a lot of knowledge or a lot of specialty tools. We have a standard 3/8 ratchet, a pair of adjustable pliers, a large flathead screwdriver, an open-end wrench that fits our flathead screwdriver, a pair of side cuts, a 14mm, 17mm 6-point socket, a small 3/8 extension, an impact driver, a piece of 1-inch hose, a grease gun, a specialty filter wrench, our standard filter wrench, a piece of hose with a barb fitting on it, and we also have a pump here to pump our gear case lube out. Now that we got our tools together, head over to Boats.net, take a look at the diagrams, and let's get the parts together so we can get this job started. Now a lot of people think changing the oil is a tedious task. It's really not. There's a couple different ways we could do this, but today we are going to demonstrate showing you how to drain the oil out of the drain plug because we do have our boat on a trailer here. So we will grab our 14mm socket and we're going to trim the motor up. By trimming the motor up, what this does is allow the oil to get in the back of the oil pan, and it will allow us to pull this drain plug out without oil going everywhere. Now there's two different ways we could do this from the oil plug. You can take a piece of hose and put it over this rubber boot, which will allow us to direct the oil into the oil pan. However, we're going to show you the hose barb trick here. I'm going to go ahead and thread this in. And as we trim it down, our oil should drain into our pan. It's just as simple as that. Okay, now that our oil's finished draining into our bucket here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to trim our motor back up so we can remove our tube. And now we're going to get our little crush washer here so we can replace it on our drain plug. And it is part of the oil change kit. We are using the Yamaha service kit, which includes the oil filter, 3 quarts of oil, and the little crush washer. We'll go ahead and we'll put this back in here and get it tightened up. And we'll go ahead and trim this back down one more time so we can get to our oil filter. Now in the oil filter, you can use a filter wrench. Yamaha also has a specialty tool that slides right on the end of it. And we'll go ahead and loosen the filter. And I'm going to go ahead and lay a rag in here just in case we drip a little bit to keep everything all nice and clean. And there we have it, our filter's out. Okay, let's go ahead and grab our new filter here. Go ahead and pull our plastic off. And there's already grease on it, so we don't have to worry about putting any oil or anything on it. We'll hand tighten it. Go ahead and put our wrench back on it. And all we want to do is snug it down. Next thing we need to do is we need to add oil to the motor. This motor takes 2.22 quarts of oil. Go ahead and remove the cap. We have our funnel here. And we'll go ahead and put the oil in it. Now that we have 2 quarts in there, we'll go ahead and we'll pull the dipstick and check our oil dipstick and see how much oil we have in there. It looks like we're almost at half, so we're going to go ahead and add a little bit more oil. We want to be sure not to overfill it. Looks like we're almost full. So we're going to go ahead and leave it there until we crank it up when we get done with our service, and then we'll double check it again and add any more that we need to. And changing the oil is as simple as that. So we're going to move on to step 2 of our 100-hour service now, and we're going to change the gear case lube. We're going to go ahead and we are going to take our drain plug out, use a large flathead screwdriver. A lot of larger screwdrivers do have a piece here that we could put a open-end wrench on to help assist us. And we will put it on here like this. And we will take the bottom out first, which is the actual drain. We want to be sure to have an oil pan underneath the motor because a little bit's going to come out. And when we pull this out here, this is an actual magnet. So we want to check this for any metal. We want to go ahead and wipe the metal shavings off of this. And one thing that we're paying attention to here is to see if there is any milky color in the oil. That would be an indication that we have a seal out. There's water getting in the gear case lube or something like that. And now we're going to go ahead and open our top vent. It's going to allow our gear case lube to start coming out. And we'll go ahead and trim this down. We want it all the way down to ensure we get all the gear case lube out. Now, if you have difficulty pulling out the drain, depending on how old your outboard is or how tight those are in there, you may need to use the impact hammer. This will help prevent you from stripping that head out on that bolt. While that thing's draining here, we're going to go ahead and grab our gear case lube. And we also have a pump for it. That's going to allow us to fill this lower unit back up. And we're going to go ahead and replace the little washers that are on both the drain and the fill. On the end of our quart pump is this little adapter piece here, which will allow us to thread the nipple into the gear case. Now, we're going to fill this gear case from the bottom up. The reason why we do that is filling it by the bottom is going to allow us to push all the air out of the top. It's starting to come out a little bit. See the air bubbles coming out. So we're going to go ahead and fill it up until all the bubbles are done pushing out. Just like that. Be sure to have your pan underneath. We're going to go ahead and put our vent screw back in this. Give it a good little snug for extra reassurance. And wipe off any excessive oil on it. Now, to make it easier, after you've filled it up like this, you can go ahead and trim the motor back up. We'll have a rag ready. And as you can see, because we have our vent filled back up, our gear lube is not running out. So we can go ahead and unscrew this and go ahead and put our drain plug in. And we'll just snug it up once again for a little reassurance. And now we've completed changing our gear case lube, and we will move on to changing our fuel filter. Thread this off, and we'll go ahead and pull this out. We'll go ahead and cut these tie wraps so we can pull the filter off and unplug it. Dump the fuel out. Looks nice and clean, no water, no debris. Get our new fuel filter, and we'll go ahead and put it right back up in there. Tighten it up as far as you can by hand. And we will plug our sensor back in. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pump up our primer bulb here. We'll watch the fuel fill up, and we have no leaks, so we're good to go. Now, this particular boat has a fuel water separator in it, so we're going to go ahead and change that as well. Go ahead and we'll take our filter off. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult depending on how long that filter's been on there. And we're going to take this filter and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and dump it out. See if there's any water, any particles, anything. Give us a good idea if we have water in our fuel. And we have our new filter here. Some people go ahead and put the filter on. However, sometimes they can't catch a prime. It's difficult to prime it up with a primer bulb. So we're going to go ahead and put a little fuel from a fuel can in it. That'll give us a good start on getting the primer bulb nice and stiff again. And our filter's close to full. We're going to go ahead and we are going to put this right back on the housing. We'll snug it up with the pliers. Just need it nice and snug to seal the O-rings on it. And we'll go ahead and prime it the rest of the way with our primer bulb. So the next thing we're going to move on to is greasing a couple of the grease fittings here. And this particular Yamaha has 2 grease fittings on the tilt tube. We want to put a little bit of grease in it, just enough that we start seeing it come out a little bit. There we go, just like that. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to check our power tilted trim fluid to make sure that it is all the way full. So in order to do that, we need to trim the motor up one last time. So we're going to grab a 17 millimeter 6-point socket. I'm going to go ahead and just loosen this up. Have a rag handy. And it looks like we are full. Go ahead and put that back on. Tighten it back up. Just snug. Well, there you have it. We've just completed our 100-hour basic service on our Yamaha F50TLR outboard motor. For all the parts, you can find us online at boats.net. And also stay tuned as we get more in depth in servicing this Yamaha outboard motor.